Thank you, Matthias. I'm going to talk, strangely enough for me, in a slightly positive way about the resolution, because at least in this front, we did actually see a bit of progress. So I'm going to talk about protection of human rights defenders, anti-corruption groups, and journalists. So, I mean, these are, should be obvious to everyone on this call, play a key role in revealing corruption, and many of them are under threat. So, SDG's reports on killings of human rights defenders and journalists every year, along with access to information. The report that just came out from the Secretary General, 331 human rights defenders were killed in 2020. I think we can pretty much assume, if we go and look into the details of them, that a vastly large number of those, there's some sort of corruption element to it. People fighting for their communities, people fighting against development, against stealing, and so on. Same time, 62 journalists were killed in 2020, 65% of them in non-conflict countries. Again, most of those probably have some kind of corruption element to it. The CPJ, Committee for Protection of Journalists, I think said the last time they looked, it was about 100 journalists in the last 10 years that they specifically identified had a corruption-related element to it. So what does the declaration do? Or maybe I should say what the UN standards are. There's a lot of UN standards on this. The UN General Assembly has done 10 resolutions between 2006 and 2019 on protection of journalists. I mean, that's pretty impressive that the GA considers this important enough. So this is about protecting them from being attacked, protecting them from being killed, from being unjustly arrested, and so on. They've done not quite as many, but a large number that's in that same period of time on human rights defenders also. There's also the Human Rights Council, which every couple of years does a resolution on this, on both subjects separately. And the FACTI panel specifically identified the importance of protecting journalists. So there's a lot of standards out there. So the question is what is UNGAS done? So there's 3 sections that are interesting in UNGAS. Section 21, which talks about the importance of civil society, academia, private sector, and the media in identifying and reporting on cases of corruption, and a commitment, sort of, to make efforts so that the conditions are present for the effective contribution of achieving the objectives of the convention, including operating independently and without fear of reprisal, with all the usual caveats after that. And then Article 30, which Sam will talk about in a minute, around whistleblowers, also sort of broadly says at the very beginning about a safe and enabling environment for those exposing, reporting, and fighting corruption. So it's a little bit broader, I would say, than just whistleblowing, but the rest of the paragraph is just about, pretty much about whistleblowers. And then Article 31, which is the most interesting one on this, is we will strive to provide a safe and adequate environment to journalists, and we will investigate, prosecute, and punish threats and acts of violence falling within our jurisdiction committed against them. So that's, I mean, strive to provide as opposed to commit to providing whatever, I mean, usual UN weasel words. But that's a pretty strong, clear statement. And it's not been done before. I went through the previous COSP resolutions, the UNCAC COSP, and I've not seen anything quite that direct. So that's a pretty positive statement there. So what does it mean? I mean, what can we do with this now as civil society, as academia, as NGOs, whatever it is, as media? How do we use this? Well, I mean, they've made a commitment now. So I think we need to figure out how to hold them to that commitment. Obviously, things around shadow reports and reviews. I mean, I think if we could get UNODC to, as part of the review process for the second cycle and whatever happens after that, to include some, data or whatever it is about NGOs and journalists in civic space, that would be, a positive thing. Beyond that, I mean, I think we've got a political opportunity that we should try and use. We've got this now coming out of here. We can take this to Geneva. We can take this to New York. And of course, we can take it to Vienna ourselves and keep reminding people of how important this is and why it needs to be done. That's all I've got to say, but if I can just put a little plug in, Article 19 is holding a side event on this at the UNGAS on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with UNESCO, who is the body in charge of monitoring SDG 16, and the Open Government Partnership, talking about access to information, SDGs, also about protection in SDGs and how the two can work together and so on. And I'll put the link into the chat. Thanks. Cheers.